I want to thank Dr. Ishmael for the opportunity to make this presentation to you about the Global Climate Geodesign Challenge. My name is Thomas Fisher. I'm a professor at the University of Minnesota in the US, and I direct the Minnesota Design Center, which looks at a range of sustainability issues, both locally and globally. I'm also the North American representative to the International Geodesign Collaboration, which is the organization that has been supporting this global climate challenge. Just as a preface to why we started the challenge was the recognition that we are in this exponential increase in CO2 emissions worldwide. This graph shows the growth in carbon emissions, particularly after 1950, and the areas in the world that are contributing the most to this. So as we can see, there's been an enormous increase not only in the United States and in Europe, but also in China and in Asia more generally. And the challenge we set for ourselves is if we do nothing, this will eventually threaten all of civilization as well as many other ecosystems and species on this planet. And so we felt as a organization that we needed to do everything we could to change the direction of CO2 emissions, ideally to get it below zero. And so our goal is to find ways in which we can help the planet and all of the nations of the world lower our emissions to below zero. And we recognize, of course, that the world is not equal, that some nations, the United States and China, perhaps most dramatically, are contributing far more to this problem than other nations. The map on the left shows the relative contributions of annual CO2 emissions, at least back in 2021. And as we can see, there are some nations that contribute way more than others. There's also the per capita CO2 emissions map on the right, again, to show that some nations, in some nations, people per capita are contributing much more than in others. This is important because one of the metrics we're using to measure the decrease in CO2 emissions is the tonnage per capita. We also recognize that there are various abilities in various nations to address this issue, that some nations have policies in place or are further along in reducing emissions than others. So the darker the blue in this map, the greater the capacity is for the nation to move quickly in this direction. And as the lighter the blue, the less advanced some countries are in reducing climate emissions and carbon emissions. And so, again, we recognize that the world is not all the same and that we needed to develop a set of tools that would enable all of the countries of the world to do the best they can at the speed with which they are able to do so. So a little bit about the International Geodesign Collaboration. This is a network of over 240 universities shown here on this map that have been involved for the last 7 or 8 years in doing studies related to climate and environmental issues of various sorts. We led a number of summits prior to the pandemic that highlighted the work of these various universities. During the pandemic, our network was rather quiet. And then having come out of the pandemic, we decided that we needed to have a single global project that we could enlist as many universities in as possible. And so after the pandemic, we decided to start this Global Climate Geodesign Challenge to see how all of these universities and their nations could work together toward achieving the goal of zero and below zero carbon emissions. This map shows the first round of projects that I'll report on in this talk. As you can see, they were scattered really around the world, although there's obviously large parts of the planet that we don't have any participation from. And one of our goals is to increase the number of universities and nations involved in this project. And so we would welcome all of you who are listening to this talk to join us in this effort. We've finished the first round of work. We'll be starting the second round of work later in 2024, and we hope to continue to do this work in the future. So some of the ways in which we organized ourselves is we made certain decisions in terms of what local teams would do. So we had each team identify a study area. It could be of various sizes, although we set a minimum of 50 by 50 kilometers as kind of the smallest size study area. We developed 8 domains of climate actions, as you can see in number 2, that really represent the 8 areas where we are generating the most carbon. We also decided on certain common colors representing these various domains. And we worked with and we have been working with the Liechtenstein Institute for Strategic Development in Berlin on the development of a series of climate actions with coefficients that go with them so that we can assess the impact on the environment of various actions that we take. So LISD, as it is called, has developed 143 climate actions that all of the participating universities have access to, and we've used those coefficients to assess the success of the various submissions. Again, we've also been looking at climate actions over time in 5-year increments. And so in addition to mapping, we've been developing Gantt charts that would look at how some actions have to happen before others. Some are short-term, some are ongoing and long-term. And so that's been another part of this, is to time the actions as we go forward. And then also to use a set of negotiating strategies that we recognize are important in various nations, since there are obviously competing interests in how we address this topic. This again just gives you a sense on the left of the 8 domains and the colors that we used, as well as I recognize too small to read, but what we've done is we've developed these 143 climate actions according to the 8 domains, and they are listed here. These have all been, again, developed by LISD in Berlin and have really been the sort of core of the work we've been doing, where a participating university would look at these climate actions listed here and identify which ones were most important to them, when they would start, and where those actions would go. This gives you just a selection of the various projects that we did during the first round. And it ranged from entire countries, for example, the entire nation of Portugal, to whole islands like Puerto Rico, to major cities in Europe or in Asia, islands in the Pacific Ocean, parts of Brazil, for example. And so this also gives you a sense of the way in which we were representing these climate actions in a series of various colors and various kinds of hatch marks that were the basis upon which we then assessed their success. This shows the initial set of projects and which of the 143 climate actions they took on. As you can see, there's some climate actions that many nations, many of the countries and universities used. and other areas where very few were used. And so we're trying to understand why some climate actions are easier to deploy than others. This just gives you a quick summary of the first round of projects. We had 27 admissions. We were able to assess 12 of them in the 8 domains. There were 32 climate policies that various participants used and 114 climate actions. And the average number of climate actions per project was 29. As you can see in the far right, the installation of solar photovoltaics was the most common action. Wetland protection, restoring river ecosystems, lake ecosystems, wind energy, installing parks and gardens are in descending order of the most frequent use of these climate actions by the various participants. This just is a list of the groups that were participating in this first round of work, as well as the kind of core team that has been working on this. A lot of this has been funded by Esri, the digital mapping company that has been very generous in helping make this happen. And as you can see here, we've done workshops both in Europe and in South America, and we are eager to do workshops in other parts of the world as well. And so we have a team ready to support participating universities and nation states that want to engage in this work. And so moving forward, we will be doing a second round of local projects later this year, we hope in more places with more participants. We are continuing to develop the climate actions and the coefficients that we use to assess their success. We are continuing to do these continental scale studies as we did in Europe and in South America. We are also developing a easily accessible app that will be available to all participants. And our goal is to get these tools into the hands of decision makers in order to make climate change assessments a regular part of our daily planning and design practices. And so here is a link to the International Geodesign Collaboration and the Global Geodesign Challenge. And so we welcome your participation and your interest. So thank you very much. And I look forward to hearing from you. Thank you.